The great sweep of the garden-lined corniche of the city of Abu Dhabi, capital city of the United Arab Emirates. One of the world's youngest countries and one of its most prosperous, the Emirates has enjoyed nearly 2 decades of peace and progress since it was established back in 1971. Since then, Abu Dhabi itself and the rest of the country has developed from an impoverished and underdeveloped backwater into one of the world's most rapidly growing states. Presiding over its development is its president, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. It's now nearly 25 years since Sheikh Zayed came to power as the ruler of Abu Dhabi, becoming president of the UAE on establishment of the federation in 1971. A quarter of a century or so ago, Abu Dhabi looked like this, a poor and ramshackle village on the edge of the Arabian Gulf, where the roads were mere sand and where the camel was the usual form of transport. Today, thanks to Sheikh Zayed's vision, Abu Dhabi and the rest of the Emirates have changed beyond all recognition. The United Arab Emirates lies upon the eastern shores of the Arabian Peninsula, with coastlines on both the Arabian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. In treaty relations with Britain for 150 years from 1820, its 7 emirates range from Abu Dhabi, the largest, with an area of 26,000 square miles, to Ajman, with a mere 100 square miles. The other 5, in order of their size, are Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, and Al Quwain. The centre of government and of the oil industry that has permitted the rapid growth of the past 20 years is Abu Dhabi itself, a city of wide thoroughfares and dramatic modern architecture, of business and of pleasure. No other city in Arabia can boast such a wide variety of gardens and parks, all created and lovingly cared for on the instructions of President Sheikh Zayed himself. The development has been funded by the wealth from oil production. Abu Dhabi first exported oil back in 1962 and is now among the world's major producers. But what's remarkable is not the money itself, but the use that's been made of it, turning the desert green and creating a modern city and a modern country out of almost nothing. The streets, the buildings, the houses, hospitals and shops, all are evidence that in the UAE a real visionary has been at work. Second largest of the Emirates is Dubai, a thriving commercial centre with its creek still busy with the traditional dhows, Arab vessels that have plied the waters of the Gulf and of the Indian Ocean for hundreds of years. Today, Dubai's ports handle bigger fish, and the Emirate has become an important regional crossroads, a gateway to the Gulf and a city that links the Middle East with Europe and the Far East, continent to continent, country to country, culture to culture. Just north of Dubai is Sharjah, now also a rapidly growing commercial centre, though one which has won a much prized reputation locally as a centre for modern Islamic architecture. Buildings like its main souk or market combine the best of modern techniques with inspiration drawn from the great Islamic architects of the past. Nestling around a small creek just north of Sharjah is the smallest of the 7 Emirates, Ajman, prospering now from its proximity to Dubai and Sharjah, but also retaining its traditional place as a centre for local boat building. Further north is Quwain, again on the edge of a creek, this time much larger. Its well-preserved fort is to be turned into a museum to house finds from the Emirates' important archaeological discoveries. Here, as elsewhere, the local people are benefiting from the largesse of the federal government and that of President Sheikh Zayed in the building of new homes, hospitals, schools, and modern municipal buildings. Northernmost of the Emirates, on the shores of the Arabian Gulf, is Ras Al Khaimah, lying strategically close to the mouth of the Gulf at the Straits of Hormuz. From here, intrepid local seamen used to set sail for Africa, India, and the Far East hundreds of years ago, as discoveries of fine ceramics from China and Vietnam have proved. Today, Ras Al Khaimah has an importance of a different kind, as one of the UAE's main agricultural zones, supplying food to the rest of the country and lessening dependence upon imports. The seventh emirate is Fujairah, which lies not upon the Arabian Gulf but on the Gulf of Oman, looking out across the Indian Ocean. It too has an important port and a developing industrial sector, but much of its hopes for the future depend upon the development of tourism. An historic castle is just one of the attractions that welcome the visitor to this jewel of Arabia. Abu Dhabi's inland oasis city of Al Ain is another part of the Emirates where the prevailing colour is no longer sandy yellow, but a verdant green. A desert oasis for thousands of years, it's grown rapidly over the past 20 or 30 years, with the date palms being supplemented by rolling fields and well-watered parks and gardens. Historic forts, once surrounded by the desert, are now each enclosed by their own girdles of green. The Federation of the United Arab Emirates took its place upon the international stage on December the 2nd, 1971, when President Sheikh Zayed signed an agreement with the British, who had been in the area for over 150 years. The flag of the new state was run up for the first time, watched by Sheikh Zayed and his fellow rulers, members of the UAE's Supreme Council. Since then, Sheikh Zayed has spared no effort to bring the benefits of development and prosperity to his country. Money is of no use, he believes, unless it is put to the service of the people. Over the past 20 years, massive investment has gone into ensuring that services of all kinds are available for the country's rapidly growing population. Sheikh Zayed has been a veritable visionary, for much of what can be seen in the Emirates today had its origins in his fertile mind. The almost impossible dream of creating a modern country, complete with all the latest services, in a land which for thousands of years had been at the mercy of poverty, drought and near famine. With the support and backing of his fellow rulers and of the people of the Emirates, Sheikh Zayed has pushed and prodded, has coaxed and encouraged to make sure that all efforts are made that can be made to turn his vision into reality. And now reality it is indeed. The Supreme Council of Rulers, working closely together since the Federation was founded in 1971, have ensured that in Federation their Emirates have achieved much more than they could have done alone. The longest-lasting federal experiment in the Arab world, the United Arab Emirates offers a message to all who will listen. More, much more can be achieved in harmony and cooperation than in acrimony and in competition. Sheikh Zayed and his fellows, working in such harmony and cooperation, have spent literally billions of dollars in investing in a better future for their people. Much of the investment, of course, has been devoted to education. In 1971, there were only around 28,000 children at school in the Emirates, but now there are over 350,000 of them, boys and girls alike, in schools throughout the country, from the big cities like Abu Dhabi to the smallest of desert and mountain settlements. All is intended to give the UAE's youth the education they need to enable them to play their parts in the future development of their country. Sheikh Zayed and his generation lacked the opportunity of having formal schooling, and that has perhaps strengthened their determination that the youth of today shall not also lack. And lack they do not. All they need is available. According to Sheikh Zayed, the youth are the real wealth of the nation, and the money being invested in educating them is already yielding substantial dividends. The educational process spans all stages, right from primary up to university. The Emirates University in Al Ain now has nearly 8,000 students and turns out hundreds of graduates a year, ready to play their part in the country's future. A chain of higher colleges of technology has also been established to provide the technical skills that are of such importance in this modern world. Seen here presenting degree certificates to a new crop of graduates, the President has the satisfaction of knowing that the new generation need not see opportunities pass them by. If investment in education is designed to develop the mind, it's equally important to care too for the body, and expenditure on healthcare facilities accounts for another major chunk of government expenditure. Again, the progress made since 1971 has been quite staggering, with modern hospitals and clinics within the reach of every inhabitant of the country. Diseases like malaria and tuberculosis, once prevalent in the days of poverty and underdevelopment, have been virtually eradicated. Preventive health programs and antenatal and childcare courses have helped the UAE to achieve major advances in life expectancy. In the past, the country's citizens used to die young, if not from disease, then from the steady toll of a life of hardship. Now life expectancy rates are on a par with the developed world. Should disease or illness come along, the country's hospitals are full not only of highly trained medical personnel, but also of the latest equipment that money can buy. The people of the United Arab Emirates have seen their lifestyle change dramatically over the past 20 years, with newfound access to education and health being complemented by improvements in other parts of their life as well. Where once rough shanties and stone buildings stood in the sand, now lush gardens fill the cities. The stock of housing includes well-built homes that are on a par with those anywhere else in the world. In this corner of the world, unlike in many other parts of the globe, the environment has changed in other ways too. Here, the sands of the desert are not on the advance, they're retreating, thanks to massive investment in agriculture and afforestation. This program, like others, has the dedicated personal support of President Sheikh Zayed, who's thrown his whole weight behind an ambitious program to turn the desert green. The change is now widely visible for even the most unobservant of observers to see. In the last 20 years, according to rough estimates, over 70 million trees have been planted in an afforestation program that has gone a long way to halt the slow and relentless advance of the dunes. It's not only trees that are turning the UAE's deserts green, but crops as well. Where once there was only sand and scattered desert scrub, now there are great fields of vegetables, of fruit trees and of corn, producing an ever-expanding harvest of food for the country's population. In the Emirate of Abu Dhabi alone, over 100,000 hectares have been brought under the plough, and the number of farms increases year by year. It's helped by a government program under which farmers receive heavy subsidies for the preparation of their land, for their seeds, their machinery, their fertilizers, and even on occasion for their farm workers too. Agriculture in the Emirates is now providing a steadily growing percentage of the country's gross national product. At some times of the year, there's a surplus available for export to markets elsewhere in the Arabian Gulf, and even as far away as Europe, a vivid testimony to the success of this part of the government's development program. The traditional crop of the desert, the date palm, hasn't been forgotten either, even though it no longer provides everything from shelter to food to building materials. Millions of palms have been planted that yield an ever-growing crop of dates for the country's people. No story of the development of agriculture in the Emirates would be complete without reference to the lifeblood of the soil, its water. In the past, the rare desert storms created torrents of rainwater that disappeared uselessly into the sand or into the sea. Now, thanks to a major building program, rainwater catchment dams have been built throughout the country, like this new one recently opened at Shuaib near Al Ain, where the water is being held back for agricultural use. Villages will no longer be swept away by the torrents, and the surrounding fields will benefit too from the harnessing of nature's rare generosity. Local industry has taken off in a pretty big way. Much of it, of course, has centered around the petroleum industry, which provides much of the country's wealth. With the capacity to produce around 3 million barrels of oil a day, the United Arab Emirates is a voice to be reckoned with in the world's economic councils. The government has long recognized the importance of diversifying away from dependence upon the single export commodity of crude oil. At the Ruwais industrial city in the west of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company has set up a number of downstream plants, from an oil refinery to a hydrocracker and a fertilizer plant, so that the greatest possible advantage can be extracted from the country's oil and gas production. While some of the products are used locally, much is exported, helping to diversify the sources of income. Another important industrial zone is at Jebel Ali in Dubai, where pride of place is held by this aluminium smelter, which exports high-quality metal throughout the world. Other industries at Jebel Ali include a cable manufacturer and a whole host of smaller factories that cater for local demand and earn useful export and re-export revenues. No longer is the United Arab Emirates a single product economy. One major advantage for the UAE's economy, of course, is purely fortuitous. The country's strategic geographical location, halfway between east and west. Catering for all of the world's top airlines, the UAE now has 5 international airports at Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah and Fujairah, with a 6th due to open soon, giving an enviable network of air links. The country's ports have become pretty important too. Equipped with the latest in modern container handling technology, ports like Port Zayed in Abu Dhabi, Ports Rashid and Jebel Ali in Dubai, Port Khalid in Sharjah and the Port of Fujairah handle between them well over 1 million container units a year, a pretty impressive number by any standards. In the country's ports, as in its airports and throughout the rest of the economy, newly qualified UAE citizens are playing an increasing role, confident participants in the building of their new country. The achievements of the Emirates are now becoming known to a wider world, and that's in part due to the recent and rather unexpected development of a tourist industry. From a few hundred tourists only 4 or 5 years ago, the UAE is now being visited by 30 or 40,000 tourists a year, from the Arab world and from Europe, and from far away, from the United States and Japan. There's plenty to interest them and to provide a bit of relaxation for the country's inhabitants too, like this fun fair at Healy, in Abu Dhabi's oasis city of Al Ain. Not far from the Healy Fun City is the Al Ain Zoo, the largest zoological gardens in the Middle East, with a variety of animals and birds that even the most imaginative of minds would not expect to find in the heart of the Arabian desert. Other attractions for tourists can be found too, throughout the country. Both the visitors and local inhabitants enjoy the opportunity of watching some of the country's more traditional pastimes, for preservation of the national heritage is another part of Sheikh Zayed's philosophy. These boat races off Abu Dhabi's Corniche are one part of that heritage. Another is the increasingly popular sport of camel racing, which attracts top owners and their animals from all over the Arabian Peninsula. Today, the camel may no longer be the main form of land transport. It's long been replaced by the four-wheel drive vehicle and the car, but it remains an integral part of the way of life of the people, from the highest to the lowest in the land. A lot has been achieved in the UAE over the last 20 years, and naturally, those achievements need protecting and preserving. The Emirates is a non-aligned country and has been a member of the non-aligned movement ever since it was established. At the same time, though, it's determined to show that it's ready to protect itself. From small beginnings, with few men and little in the way of equipment, the armed forces have been built up so that they're now equipped with the latest in military hardware. Highly trained men who look pretty good on parade, but men who are as well ready to perform the task allotted to them, of being the Dira al-Watan, the shield of the nation. With the good fortune that has accompanied the building of the Emirates since 1971, the country has been able to stay clear of conflict. But its men are on alert, ready to defend their land and their people. Achievements at home have been paralleled abroad. President Sheikh Zayed has succeeded since he became ruler of Abu Dhabi and then President of the Emirates in winning a reputation as an effective and a shrewd statesman. Much of the focus of the country's foreign policy has naturally been within the framework of the Arab world. The six-member Gulf Cooperation Council, seen here meeting in Oman, groups the Emirates with Oman, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain and Kuwait. It has become a powerful voice in regional and international affairs. Sheikh Zayed is also a prominent figure in the councils of the Arab world, frequently visiting his fellow heads of state and receiving them in Abu Dhabi too, all part of efforts to create a confident and united Arab world. He's a player on the international stage too. Last year's engagements included a formal state visit to London, where he was the guest of Britain's Queen Elizabeth II. Foreign heads of state and government have become frequent visitors to the Emirates to exchange views with the UAE's president. Most recently, Sheikh Zayed hosted the President of the People's Republic of China, Yang Shangkun, one of the many leaders to visit the UAE since it joined the international community back in 1971. It's not so long ago that much of the world had never even heard of Abu Dhabi and the other Emirates. Not now. Its achievements at home and abroad have won the country increasing recognition, a recognition that seems set to spread yet further in the years ahead. Presiding over these achievements and guiding his people on the path of progress has been the man who first forged the federation and then led it to prosperity, the father of the nation, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan.